Manasa? All right, okay. I hope everyone mingled, stretched, ready for the second half. Okay, so we're going to deep dive into a session here, but before that, I'll just quickly announce what's happening in Hall 1 and Hall 2 as well. So we have a masterclass on data and storytelling in Hall 1. And in Hall 2, for the next 2 hours, there's a role play session. So if anyone's interested in an engaging session, please head to Hall 2. All right, so here in the auditorium, we're going to kind of deep dive into solving for water scarcity, focusing a little bit more on water recycling. So I'd like to invite Manas Rath, who's going to be moderating the session. A quick introduction of Manas. He's the founder of Leap Cities. He works with a lot of businesses, organizations, social organizations to help strengthen their business model, but also work on their value proposition to improve quality of life for communities and citizens. He, in fact, has played a huge role with FluxGen as well, so I'm very happy that he's here to moderate the session. And to introduce the panelists, we have Dr. Prasanna, who actually had to leave because he had to catch his flight. Sadly, we're missing him. But we have Mr. Sujit, the Environment and Sustainability Manager at Adani Airport Holdings. And we have Dr. Anand, Chairman and Director at Ecotech Engineering Consultancy. All right, all over. Stage is over to you, Manas. Yeah, also, again, whoever's at the back, please come down. I can see you. The light is not blinding. Yeah, yeah. Where is... Okay, so Aditya, who was in the hydromingle, you probably heard his pitch. We'll ask him to join the session as well.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll have a very interesting conversation. So there's no chance or risk of anyone feeling sleepy or drowsy. All right. Very happy to have our panelists with us, and just to set context, and I know we've talked we've talked a lot about water, we have talked a bit about wastewater the last couple of days. Um, we'll be looking at wastewater largely from an urban perspective, because that's where the need to treat wastewater and the potential to reuse it is probably greatest in the urban and industrial landscape. Now, some of the statistics we see are that about 70% of wastewater or used water is released into the environment without adequate treatment or without any treatment at all. In Indian cities alone, this is 40 billion liters of water every day, right? And you can just imagine that all the problems we see of water shortages, and therefore cities want to do desalination plants, they want to build new dams, new pipelines, getting water from 100, 200, 300 kilometers away. I think it's fair to say that most cities could eliminate most of their water shortages, if not all, if we were able to capture this wastewater or used water and treat it and reuse it productively for some purpose. As somebody pointed out in the earlier session, it's not just about conserving fresh water, but it's also about the pollution that we release and all the downstream effect it has on health and the environment and the ecology. And if you take a ride on the Bangalore metro, you will come across several points. You will look into very, very dirty nalas, including a few large STPs. And you can just imagine that if that wastewater was well captured, well treated, our rivers and our lakes and our nalas would look very, very different. In fact, there's one right behind here, right? And if you look into it, it's quite embarrassing that all our biggest cities, I come from Bombay. Bombay is the 17th richest city in the world. Can you believe that? 17th richest. But what it offers is, in quality of life, it ranks at 154. And pollution, it's number one. Easily the most polluted city if you take water, air, noise, land. So clearly this is something we need to do a lot about, and it's great to have our panelists here to talk about what can we do to to use wastewater more productive, put it to good use. So let me start. I wanted to start with Prasanna, but he had to leave because of his flight. So let me maybe start with Anant. To ask you, you've been in this space for a very, very long time. Now, we'll try to touch about 2-3 mega themes. One is wastewater treatment at a decentralized level and a centralized level. Second is, what is the right way to think about wastewater from a reuse perspective? There's a policy aspect, there's a practicality aspect, there's a cost aspect to it. And then the third thing I'd like to touch upon is, since we do have a lot of, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship. What do you think are the opportunities in the wastewater space where people may either find careers or find startup opportunities, and for the investors in the room, maybe new investment opportunities as well, right? For the audience, what I'd love to, as you listen to them, this is a drop talk. It's not about having an audience and having panelists. We want it to be a give and take for everybody. So if there's something you can offer back to the panelists in terms of help, support, business opportunities, investment, etc., please do keep that in mind and catch them later. I think we all are part of the same community, and there's a lot we can receive from each other and we can offer to each other. Okay. So Anant, maybe to get you started, especially when you look at small scale STPs and even for the large ones, we hear that 60, 70, 80, somebody will say 90% of STPs don't work, right? The statistics are different depending on which city you look at, what kind of STP you look at. Just very quickly, in about, maybe just to get things started, why do STPs not work in your experience? I think you've got a mic over there.
Yeah, so we have seen hundreds and hundreds. My focus has now shifted to the small scale STPs, the decentralized urban STPs since 2006, when the MOEF mandated that apartments, IT complexes, malls, hotels must set up their own treatment plants, recycle, reuse. When they first introduced this, I was totally against it. I protested with the KSPCB, but over the years, I've come to believe that this is the way to go, because most of the government agencies are unable to treat what you are generating in terms of the sewage, and they are not able to supply you the required quantity of water. So when you have a good STP in your own basement or in your backyard, you do both. You treat your wastewater, you have a ready, perennial, guaranteed source of water for all your secondary uses. So our focus shifted to STPs in the decentralized space from the year 2006. So we have audited number of STPs of various technologies, you name it, SBR, MBBR, MBR, electrocoagulation, anaerobic, activated sludge plants. So based on all our studies, we have audited hundreds and hundreds of these. Based on our studies, we believe the extended activated sludge technology is best suited for these small-scale STPs for various reasons. One, very, very simple treatment plant. Technology is very simple. The skill level required to operate and maintain is simple. And it is also the easiest of technologies to automate. Once you do the settings, the fluid flow settings, the airflow settings in the various tanks, the level controls by automatic pumping and other things, there is no work for the operator to do. In fact, it runs by itself. So we have now done a pilot now where for the last 3 months, our operators have just been watching the STP and it runs by itself. It's a 300 KLD extension. Another reason, we have audited hundreds and hundreds of SBR STPs. Why they come for audit? Because it's not working. And if you look at it also, 12, 15 years ago, most of the treatment plants, the small-scale treatment plants were based on extendation. They are still working well. It is only of recent vintage, the SBR has come into focus in the south. It is MBBR in the western region. I don't understand how geography determines the technology for a small-scale STP. It can determine maybe the design criteria and things like that, depending on the altitude and things like that, temperature, altitude, oxygen saturation values and things like that, but not the technology. This is the major case. So 4 things are very, very critical for a good STP on a sustainable basis to run with least cost of ownership. So that is our philosophy when we design, engineer, operate, and maintain a plant. Sustainable operation over 35 years plus. Why 35 years plus? Our oldest plant is now 36 years old, and that is not for some XYZ company. It is for Unilever, Hindustan Unilever Limited. We have been operating it for more than 36 years. So that's where we come from. A treatment plant should have a minimum life of more than 35 years, least cost of ownership, and you may have the best of technologies, but you must also understand the mindset, the psychology of the ultimate user. That is more important, whether he is going to be able to maintain it, operate it, spend the money, all those things. So that is also equally important. So in the small scale sector, we advocate only 2 technologies. One is MBR, the other is extendation. And MBR only for very, very, very selective clients who know what they are getting into. And in fact, I can tell you, in our own case, which we did for a major chip manufacturer, 12, 15 years ago, we built extendation. They wanted to expand capacity, upgrade the technology, and meet 50% of the PCB standards. So we upgraded it to MBR, and we are happily operating it. So it is only these 2, and I do not recommend it for malls, hotels, where huge oil and grease comes, or in a residential complex where the residents will not be able to, they will not just afford to maintain those kind of things. So we have to look at the psychology of the user.
Great. So MBR, so again, as you said, there are a lot of technologies. Customers need to both know, and maybe we'll come back to this question, because there's also, why STPs fail, the deeper reason. There's some deeper reasons which don't come out very clearly, right? So suitable technology based on what the customer can afford and maintain, because MBR is going to give you drinking quality water almost, but it's expensive. It requires very good maintenance. And then you've got things like extended aeration or even nature-based systems, which are much lower cost to maintain. They give you good quality of water that can be reused for things like flushing and landscaping and various uses. And then in between, you can adjust the technology to meet your needs. Sujit, let's shift scale to slightly bigger to infrastructure scale, right? And would love from your experience at airports, and especially what you see with the smaller airports to the bigger airports, right? How much water saving are you able to drive at your airports, or the ones that you're seeing? And like you were saying, some of them are very old, so the water reuse may not be that much. Some of them are brand newer airports. But how much water saving are you able to see at the airports because of the STP, and when it is well run and well designed? How much fresh water do you save over there?
Right. So currently we are operating a multiple number of airports. One, the brownfield ones. The brownfield ones are quite difficult because the already existing network of sewerage system is completely leaked. So we don't know the end product because the inflow is like around 250 to 350 kld in an airport, and at the end of the inlet of the STP we get around 40% less. So that is where some correction has to be made, and we are doing that correction over a period of time by having a lot of technical experts in the in the front. So that is with the supply. What is with the inflow and the outflow? So in the STP sector also, it has been a lot of conventional setup what we have already done a long period of time, which is currently operating at a very good efficiency. But the amount of water which is being taken from the inflow to the outflow should be matched. So once that is being ready, the treatment will take, because it's a STP which various parameters not that great, varying. And the problem again, what we are facing, with sir mentioned, is that the operational difficulties what we face over a period of time. Because if there's any troubleshooting in that particular system, this goes for a toss, and we have to let go of some of this, into a landscaping or into a drain. So that do happen, but that's not a big concern, but right off now. But what is the concern right now is the reporting mandate what we are getting into. So we have to show in a picture where we are actually recycling and getting this water back into the system. And that is where the struggle is all about. And places like Trivandrum, where I come from, the experts, like, I'm very happy to see a lot of people here early morning having this expertise. But coming there over a period of time and getting this being done is something which the industrial is required in that particular city which I come from. So there is an ample opportunity for, to establish a proper mechanism to reinvent or, redevelop the existing system which was built like 10, 15 years back. And what for the new systems, obviously, we have the, advanced system, what is we coming from recently in Navi Mumbai as well. We have started with an advanced system, which it's like a ZLD system, which goes back into the system. Recently, last 15 days back, we had inaugurated STP plant at Ahmedabad, similar systems. So existing system has to, somewhere we have to plug in with the new retrofit technologies, and the older systems needs that. And the new system, already we have the system which a lot of discussions been taking place. So that is something which no foolproof.
Yeah. So I'll come back to this question, and there's a gentleman here from, if I may say so, from Toyota, who was saying how they're upgrading their factory from a point where they currently are able to treat and reuse about 65% of the water they use, to they'll be treating and reusing 98% of the water they use, right? And honestly, I think what, I'll come back to you now and have a slightly different question for you. But I think this is what gives me the greatest hope for the water sector, and why I don't always subscribe to the gloom and doom that we'll run out of water and we'll have World War III over water. Is because I think today the technology that we have for water treatment, wastewater treatment and reuse is incredible. It is just that not everybody is using it because there are policy gaps, there are implementation gaps, there are knowledge gaps, and sometimes there are also financial issues, the cost of treated water versus the cost of fresh water, right? And so I think that as we face more and more water pressure, I think the ones who are more conscious citizens, corporate or individuals, will take those leaps first, and then eventually we'll have to drag and push everybody else along. But I think once we get there, I think we can really be at a point where our water system can be far more efficient with a lot less pollution in the environment and a lot more water security. And of course, the digitization, the technologies, the innovations are helping that to happen. I mean, just as an example, about 6 years ago when we did a study, I worked with BORDA, which is a non-profit, CDD and BORDA. The biggest O&M cost for STPs was the labor, because you needed 24/7, 3-shift workers, right? And today with the amount of automation that has happened for many, many technologies and sizes, that cost has come down dramatically. And therefore it becomes a lot more affordable to set up the plants, and therefore a lot easier for people to run it well. Other people say, "Arey, band kar do," because it's too expensive to run, shut it off, bypass the sewage, and therefore we get all our pollution problem. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the city level, because I also see, especially the decentralized wastewater treatment, as something that, and also, I don't know if you have any experience with nature-based solutions, But looking at how do we integrate STP. So one is, you've talked about the private domain, right? Airport, building, mall, factory, etc. But in the public domain, where typically, sewage treatment plants will be from 10 MLD, will be a small one, and you'll have up to 300, 400 million liters a day, 400 MLD plants, which are common in big cities. And that, of course, then means huge amount of space. There's a lot of resistance because there's worry about smell and so on. And then there's a question that, if you're going to treat 100 million liters of water in one location, and often these are built slightly downhill, right, for gravity flow, what are you going to do with so much water? How do you reuse it productively in the urban environment? And then usually you say, okay, we'll give it for agriculture or let it into water bodies, which is okay. But given how much you're spending on getting the water in, it's good to reuse it before releasing it. I call water the other single-use resource, right? It comes from 200 kilometers away, you use it for half a second, and then boom, it goes back somewhere, right? And it's a huge amount of energy and effort and infrastructure wasted. Do you have any thoughts on how we can think about small-scale decentralized STPs in the public domain, in the municipal domain, and what that can do for our cities? This is more like visioning, right? It's more like imagining what it could be.
In the public space also, small size micro STPs exist here in Bangalore. There's a very beautiful concept where, virtually every public park in Bangalore, somewhere in a corner of that park, there'll be an STP. Right? The concept is that the sewer line was cut, a wet well was created, so whoever is running that park draws the sewage, treats the water, and uses that treated water for gardening purposes to water for landscaping of that park. Now, as it is in the residential, commercial, or industrial space, I'll reiterate what Dr. Kodavatsal said. 9 out of 10 STPs that we visit are defunct. They are not partially working, or they're not working at 50%. They are defunct, right? It's a similar story in the municipal space. They were built because the project or the funding was to build one, right? They don't work. There is one iteration in Bangalore of a 2 MLD which was built and installed 9 years ago, but was never commissioned. And when someone came and slapped them with a fine, they woke up and then they incidentally came to us and we got it up and running in a couple of months' time. So in the public space, while on paper and to show there are these great projects and one can take pride in the fact that so many MLD is being treated and sent to Kolar or now Chikballapur. But is it consistent? Okay, is the water quality consistent? Are those mega projects doing what they were intended to do? Right? Then there is this whole thing of, this urge or this itch that everyone seems to have of latest and greatest and technology. The latest and greatest does not work in sewage treatment. When it comes to municipal STPs above 10, 15 MLD, it is A2O. Right? Or when it comes to these smaller micro decentralized STPs, it is EAS, it is ASP. The people who design and implement these STPs have never come and operated one. Right? They don't know the challenges or they don't know the nuances of it. Right? I was having a conversation with someone outside and I said, an SBR is like having a mild headache for 24 hours a day. Right? I haven't reached the level or status of Dr. Kodavatsal to say, no, this is wrong, and this is only the right way. I operate SBRs, but that everyday Saridon is required.
And why is that required? What is the problem? just briefly.
Basically, it boils down to the O&M. And again, with this itch of technology and IoT and AI and robotics, you're trying to eliminate the human out of it. Okay? Running and operating a STP is like running and operating a kitchen. I cook a little bit myself, and I love this example. When you buy chicken, okay, a kilo of chicken from a local shop versus when you buy a kilo of chicken from, say, Venki's Tender Chicken, the amount of time and effort required to cook example A versus example B to get the same result is different. The methodology has to change. Do we have IoT and AI systems today which can analyze this and make this change? Right? Like sewage, the DNA of sewage is never consistent. Right? Maybe in municipal STPs it gets equalized, the load gets equalized to a very, very large extent. But in residential, industrial, commercial, airports, you don't know who's doing what at what time of the day. There's no roster, right? So the biological load keeps changing. And then we're Indians, right? We love celebrations. We have so many festivals, so many pujas. And based on that, what we cook and how we dispose it.
And how much we cook.
And how much we cook. Yeah. Festivals are a nightmare. If you operate a residential STP in an apartment, festivals are a nightmare. There is so much of starch. So this one templatization of this wastewater and water treatment is something that I am against. It is horses for courses. You need to know the DNA or the demographics of the people whose poop you are going to treat.
So is there variability that gives you a headache?
It is the variability. It is the customer's reluctance to engage with experts who have enough and more experience. And at the end of the day, it is the cheapest plumber or that security guard. We've seen security guards operating STPs.
Operating the STP, yeah. So, Dr. Anant, another question on the policy side for you. Today I can stand up and say, I am going to design a STP. And I've got no qualification or education to design a STP, right, except understanding of the topic. And if I can convince somebody by offering a low price or by sweet-talking them or by offering them a little bit of money on the side, I can probably get an order also. And I can build a STP and it'll turn on and some fans will blow and some motors will blow and whatever. And then I'll be out of there. I'll collect my money and go. And of course, in 3 to 6 months, the plant will probably not be working or it'll be struggling, right? Now, one of the solutions, in many countries, what they do is if you want to design STPs, there are two things we can look at. And I'd love your comment on these ideas. One is that only certified players are allowed to design STPs. So you need a license to design STP, which means that you pass certain exams, you've got certain qualifications, all your engineers, all your designers have passed certain qualifications. Like you need a license to practice many things, right? You want to be a chartered accountant, you need a license to do it, right? I can't say I'm going to be a chartered accountant and sign on an audit report tomorrow. So one is, do we need rules that say that anybody who designs the STP has to be certified, licensed, and qualified? And the second solution could be that those who build the STP also have to run it for a 5 to 10 year period. Then automatically, I'm not going to build a STP because I know wo chalega nahi. So I'm not going to take the risk. And if it doesn't work, and if I have screwed up, then there should be consequences, penalties, jail time, whatever, right? My sense is that if these two rules are bought in, you could, and of course, everything can be gamed, right? But I say, okay, look, even if there's 70% adherence to these two rules, Pollution Control Board, municipalities, watchdog NGOs, competing businesses, they say, this person is not qualified, this person is not operating. Do you think that could greatly improve in the next 10 years? Could we get to the point where 90% of STPs actually are working well, or is something else also needed?
Of the two options, I would prefer the second one, where the builder, whoever sets up the STP, takes up the responsibility to run it for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And in fact, this kind of a sense is coming in Hyderabad now. Many of the builders are thinking of that. It's a good suggestion. The first one I'm totally against. You can purchase any registration, any qualification. And in fact, the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, I think about 10 years ago, started empaneling these consultants. The High Court threw it out because they said you do not have the necessary qualifications to empanel these fellows in the first instance. So I'm not a big fan of empanelment or registration, things like that. I have seen many complexes, IT complexes of multinational companies where the STPs are totally dysfunctional and they get platinum rating. So I'm beginning to think whether water and the water recycle reuse gets very low weightage. So this is across the board. It's not just one or two. I have seen it many, many places. So I'm not in favor of the first one. Second one certainly is. You hold the builder responsible, the vendor responsible. See, our policy is now, philosophy of this thing is, we design treatment plants for the ultimate user, not for the builder.
Right.
The builder is only an intermediary. He takes money from the flat owners who buys the flats and gives it to us. So my primary responsibility, duty is to the ultimate user. So I look at his comfort level, whether he will be able to afford to, and that is where the sustainability, least cost of ownership comes. Least cost of ownership comes at a little higher cost, initial cost, which
Upfront
the
cost, yeah.
builder has to bear. This is what we do. When a builder comes and gives me an SBR, design an SBR, I say, no, please go to some other SBR designers. SBR will not work. And now, we operate and maintain more than 95 plants in Bangalore, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Pune. In all the residential complexes, we recycle and reuse 60% of the STP water. To that extent, they are water secure. So multiple benefits from a good STP. That's what you need. One is protection of the environment, water conservation, then you become a good citizen. Water security is very important, and then the economic benefits. When you are recycling and reusing 60%, to that extent, you are cutting down freshwater purchase costs. Many of our, and 60% in the case of residential complexes, it goes as high as 85% in the case of commercial complexes with a huge HVAC cooling water requirement. This we have shown again and again and again in malls, in hotels, 85%. And in fact, ITPL, it went as high as 90%. So there is a great benefit, multiple benefits from a good STP. And even if you have a dysfunctional STP, you spend 60, 80 lakhs rupees, the payback period is just a matter of months, because most of these small-scale STPs in multi-storied complexes are in the outskirts, where the municipal supply is not there. They depend on tanker water. Tanker water is firstly expensive, and during summer months, it is just difficult to source.
Not available, yeah.
Out of the way. In fact, in Bangalore, during summer months, the tankers are auctioned at the borewell. It can go as high as 200, 250 rupees per kiloliter. You can imagine. We recently did one RMBR conversion. RMBR is totally out for me. Conversion for a residential complex, the residents spend 90 lakhs. They have recovered the money in a matter of 8 months.
Wow.
It is pure economics. It's mind-boggling. But people do not, there's a lack of trust here. Lack of knowledge and lack of trust. This is the major problem for STPs to be dysfunctional across India. I'm not talking about just Bangalore. We have audited plants in Delhi NCR. It is the same everywhere. And I don't blame the builders, but I do, in a sense, they do not do their homework, due diligence, and find out whether the STPs work or not, why they do not work. They do not apply their mind. This is the problem. They just blindly take what the MEP consult gives, implements it. And I have seen in some of our treatment plants designed by MEP consultants, the plant is not working. The MEP consultant has not even come and seen the STP. One simple thing, there was a clarifier, mechanical clarifier. The mechanism was off center by 1 foot. You can imagine the havoc it can cause. There is dead pockets in that settling tank. All the sludge comes out. And for 1 year, during the DLP period, nobody even bothered about it. When I went in and saw, within 5 minutes, I could figure out what the problem was. So it needs a lot of thinking, application of mind to make things dysfunctional. It is a heart surgery. It's a precision surgery you have to do. And that we have done quite a lot, as Aditya says. This we specialize in. We have done more than 75 such surgeries, SBR to extendation, MBBR to extendation, MBR to extendation, and extendation to extendation also. Doesn't mean that You select the right technology, you get the results. Technology, design, engineering, operation and maintenance. 4 key aspects have to be perfect. And that's where, that's how a sustainable STP works.
Great, thank you. And I just want to highlight one point you said, which is a good STP is going to have a higher upfront cost than a poor quality STP, but the life cycle cost is going to be much cheaper. So for those who are entrepreneurs in the room or want to be, very often in all sorts of sustainability areas, we find this problem that the more responsible product is more expensive upfront. So we have to shift the thinking of the customer towards the long-term or the life cycle cost, right? And that's when you recover your money, and it makes sense. So just if you could just talk, and then we'll come to Q&A. The regulatory environment is also quite confusing. There is a lot of, corruption. There is a lot of not enough thought around what the standard should be, how to apply it. Many of the departments don't have the right sort of expertise, so they follow a book or some rule without thinking, and therefore, they don't exactly know what they're sometimes doing. Running something like an airport, when you look at the water and the wastewater system, any thoughts on how regulations need to evolve so that we can have better quality wastewater treatment and reuse? Or what sort of challenges do you see on the regulatory side and at your facilities?
See, in our facilities, basically, it's very clear that during the consent itself, it's been mentioned that we need to reuse this water in the premises. But then there was also a caveat by the EC which was given that it can be partially treated at the local STP driven by Kerala Water Authority. The problem here, what we are facing is we have 2 terminals, one at the opposite, facing each other. So the domestic which we operate, we have this treatment plant where we operate and we recycle it for our own purpose. But then the international one, it has been operated by Kerala Water Authority, and they have a huge plant at Muttathara which supplies for the whole city. But then the recycling part of that is not very strong. So we are in talks with the Kerala Water Authority so that we can get back the water to Trivandrum International, for our operation, so that the water balance is perfect. So that is one challenge. During the consent, it was being given like that, so that during the expansion phase, we are likely going to change that. Okay. So once that has been changed, and because once we are going to the expansion, we will be in a position that we will be completely operating this particular treatment in our own premises.
So you'll treat 100% of your wastewater, and then what percentage of that do you think you can reuse at the airport itself?
Because we are having a huge opportunity for horticulture and landscape. So the percentages we can actually go in further, more than that.
Okay.
So we are in requirement of water more than what we actually, recycle in the airport premises.
But that's also because you're losing 40% in losses, right? So once you fix your pipelines,
yes,
hopefully whatever you receive, whatever water you use, but then, okay, there's a landscaping use which you can't recover. So, okay, so you'll still be needing some fresh water, but a large part will be the reuse, the treated water.
Advantage being in Trivandrum is that Trivandrum being a very, bountiful with the water, because every 3 feet you can get the groundwater there. So groundwater recharge pits and harvesting is a no-go. So you can, the plants are, self-sustained there. So that is one advantage.
Okay, so that's one advantage of location. Okay. Why don't we open up for some audience questions? I mean, I have a lot of other questions I could ask you, and I will, depending on what questions we get. There's a hand up there. Is there a mic? Somebody has a mic?
Hi.
Just say your name and which organization you're with, and then you can ask your
My
question.
name is Harika. I am a fellow from the Sastera Foundation. So my question is for Dr. Anand. He was just talking about builders should take the whole responsibility for the STP maintenance and STP installation. And while we were discussing some of the action items that were in the Bangalore Climate Action Plan, STPs and rainwater harvesting were 2 priority items in the water management. And in the cohort, we had an architect who worked with mega real estate developers, and we were asking him, why is this not widely implemented, the STP management and RWH? And like Dr. Anand was saying, there is lack of knowledge and awareness, that is one thing. But I want to ask, is there lack of incentive also? Because people who don't have knowledge, they think that I don't want to put this upfront cost in whatever I'm doing right now. So why do I take up this on my head? And it just circulates like that. So is there any way that they can be incentivized and well, spreading awareness will take time, and explaining the economics of it, that okay, you have to see the long-term value of it, but people just think about the upfront cost. They just want to do cost cutting as much as possible, and they don't see really the value of this. So can they be incentivized in some way?
Let me add to that question. See, we may not have the knowledge, but like you said, is there an incentive to gather that knowledge? And honestly, it's not that hard to figure this out. It's not like some secret which only 4 people in the world know, right? You go and talk to 10 people and 3, 4 people will give you the answer. I mean, what I've gathered, it is willful ignorance. I don't want to spend more, so whatever my MEP consultant says, I say choose the lowest cost. That person has got their setting to make their decisions without being responsible to the client or to the end occupant. And so everyone is saying, he's gave me a paper, he's the expert, or she, I accepted it, so there's willful ignorance on all sides. That's the way I see the situation. Do you feel differently about it?
Exactly. See, 10, 15 years ago, the MD, the top management of many of these builders directly got involved in when the STPs first started. I have traveled with them to Delhi to present our case to the MOF. Those days we had to present and get the environment clearance from MOF Delhi. All the big builders used to come, the top people. They were keenly associated with these STP. Today, all the builders have grown big. The top management doesn't get into it. It is the lower level people who have to select and execute these treatment plants, and they do not apply their mind. In fact, I don't blame the builders in one sense, that they end up spending more money than what is required to be spent. The case of SBR in and around Bangalore. Most of the SBRs, the footprint, I can design my extension within 65% of the footprint of an SBR, a properly designed SBR. That means you have so much more space to sell as car parking spaces. You make money. Less footprint, less tank volume, less construction cost, less tank volume, less energy, less operating costs. So in one particular thing, I gave this example with our exoneration. The entire cost savings because of this thing can pay for my entire STP. But the MEP head of that very big builder from Western region, he says, I've never heard of exoneration, so I cannot approve this plant. So I had to keep quiet. So that is the level of knowledge of many of these fellows who take decisions on treatment plants. If it had been the MD or the chairman of that company, in fact, in one particular group, a major builder, one of the largest builders now, he claims, in India, I had to go right up to the chairman to make them at least attend some of my classes, master class. So I conduct master classes for these builders. I don't know how much they get out of it or how much they are going to implement. The problem here again is they do not see whether they do not get into the STPs once it is up and running. They can see it is not working, but they do not want to change. And another funny thing, many of these builders from the Western region, they do MBBR in the Western region, but when they come south, it is SBR. I am unable to understand whether STPs, the small-scale STP technology, is geography dependent. Yeah, it may be, the design criteria may be different if you are in Ooty or Kodaikanal somewhere at a low temperature, but the technology cannot change. So these are some of the things which I am unable to understand, which I am trying to break the mindset. It's very difficult. It's going to take some time. But
Thank you.
only strict implementation by the government is going to change this. That's not happening.
I'd like to add and build a little upon what Dr. Anand said. Last night I got a BOQ from a reputed builder. They want 6 STPs built. Okay. And it was a random email from someone whom I don't know. So when I called back this morning, I realized that it was the intern who joined 3 days ago was given the BOQ and said, go search on Google and send it to everyone. Right? So what incentive do you give to these people?
Aditya, it is not just the interns. Yeah. I have seen one tender document, printed tender document from one of the most famous architects in Bangalore, giving 20 different technologies for a 300 KLD residential complex. It includes a septic tank, anaerobic thing, enzyme technology, whatnot, electrocoagulation. So this person has just gone to Google, downloaded all the available technologies and put it in the tender document. So that is the level, not just interns. It is even the topmost architects in Bangalore do that. Another case, one of the topmost architects in Bangalore, Singapore headquarters. Within 1 year, for 300 KLD in one of the complexes in Whitefield, 400 KLD, he gave SBR. I knew the director of that company, and therefore we got it thrown out. We did exoneration. Another one, which we automated now, the same architect gave electrocoagulation. Again, the environment secretary, who was an advisor to that group, came to me. We threw out electrocoagulation. It is exoneration. The same fellow, within that 1 year, for a 300 KLD for another major builder from Bombay, he has given MBBR. So I'm unable to understand, within a period of 1 year, he has selected three technologies for the same size. What is his competence? Does he know what these technologies mean? So this is the level of knowledge for many of these major architects. He is not a altu-faltu architect. He is Singapore-based architect.
But in the
Let's do
first,
one more.
in
So
the
let's
first
take one more
place,
question.
the architect has no business to
To
design
recommend
an STP.
anyways. Exactly. It should be done by, but again, we see our consultants also have their own incentives and so on. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Right here in front.
Hi, I am Siddharth. I represent the healthcare sector. I'm from K Hospitals. Sir, while I understand the focus is on architects and designers and builders, to truly achieve a sustainable solution to this, don't you think the end user, that is the user who's using the kitchen or an office space, the kitchen contractor or anybody in that sense, should also be trained to a certain extent? Because in Western countries, I've seen, they have a very strict policy on what you can and cannot put in the sink. You cannot put grease in the sink. It has to be properly solidified and then put aside in a separate bin. Japan does some fantastic segregation at the root level. So can we use forums like this to actually put this message out along with focus on the big players later?
I don't know what will happen from a policy or an education standpoint or a broader standpoint, but to all Greentivity customers, we give them 2 advisories once we take over their assets. One are the do's and don'ts with STP treated water. What you can do with it, what you cannot do with it. The second advisory that we give is the do's and don'ts with regards to disposal. What do you put down the drain, what you don't put down the drain. Okay? So in one apartment complex, we tried it as a pilot 2 years ago. Every now and then, there is paint that is coming into the STP. And paint is bad in an STP. It can kill the microbes. You know, it's disaster. Yeah. Then the stink wing, everything happens. So we worked out a plan with that RWA saying that you've got 425 flats. At any given point of time, more than 10% of the flats shouldn't be given permission to paint. Then there is construction waste. Right? Then the biggest problem post-COVID that we see in the residential segment is pet hair. I'm a pet lover myself. I've got one exotic pet. Every time I brush him, you know, there's half a kilo of hair which can fill a decent sized pillowcase. Right? There's pet hair that comes in. There's human hair that comes in. There are injection syringes that come. Tablet foils and wrappers. And then the usual culprits, right? Fat, oil, grease. So we give these advisories, and with more mature audiences, when people come and have intelligent conversations with us saying that my breakdown rate or my failure rate or my uptime is going for a toss.
We'll need to.
Right?
Yeah. So the answer is that we should tell them, but they don't always listen. Is that a fair
Dunya padi likhi jahil hai na?
That is always the case.
That's always the case.
Even in malls where huge food courts, all these Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, there is a set SOP for them to collect, but
but they
we
won't,
have
they
to
won't
take
follow
care
it. Okay. If there's one more very quick question. Okay, I don't see any hands up. We are under pressure to close, so I think we'll close this session. What I'd like to just wrap up with is we have a tremendous amount of technology. There's a lot of opportunity. Okay, yeah, so you want to ask a quick one?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Vignesh. I'm working with Graha Council. So my question is, so all the panelists over there will agree to the fact like it's really difficult for every residential household to go for STP, right? So my question is there any possibility of installing micro STP at every street level or at small scale zones or something like that? So what are the roadblocks in doing such things actually? Installation of micro STPs.
So, if I have to give a quick answer, if you don't mind, I'll just give a quick answer. I think the issue often tends to be around space, and land tends to be the biggest issue, right? There are a few ideas around this. One is, as you said, public spaces, gardens, parks can be used. You have nature-based solutions that can actually integrate beautifully. You don't even need surface area for it, right? Everything can happen underground with plants, etc. The other thought is, and many countries do this, where even the private STP is, as part of the consent to build, you are supposed to take in certain amount of public wastewater and treat it, right? So you get maybe a little extra FSI, but if your own STP is going to be 1 MLD, you build a 2 MLD or a 1.5 MLD plant and take some public wastewater as well. So I think there are creative solutions that can be explored. I don't know if you want to add something to it. The potential is definitely there. What we do see is a lot of the municipalities and the public health department, or depending on the city, whoever is operating these STPs are reluctant to take on more locations, because more locations for them means more potential failure points, which means more headache, more risk, more staying awake at night. So therefore, they tend to prefer 5 STPs in the city versus 500 in the city, because for them it's 500 points of vulnerability and complaint and malfunction. So that tends to be one institutional problem with doing more STP. But the solution really should be that every street corner, at most every zip code should have its own STP, right? And then I think you'll have much better treatment and reuse potential. Yeah, thanks for that. Just, a lot of people here are interested not just in water, but in climate more generally. There are people here who are in the built environment. Energy gets a lot of attention, right? We're all carbon. We are obsessed with carbon. We are worried about carbon. We are scared of carbon. We are whatever about carbon, right? Water tends to get a lot less attention, although the technologies are there, the solutions are there, the expertise is there, the experience is there. If any of you as users, as policy influencers, as researchers, or as students even, would like to learn more, I think there's a tremendous amount of expertise here. And if you know people who should be having STPs or should be operating them better, please do come and tell our partners over here. If you've got technologies you would love to sell to an airport, I'm sure Sujit would love to hear from you. I don't know if he can use you, but I'm sure he would love to give a listen and give some feedback. So please do engage with the panelists, and thank you very much for listening and participating. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insightful session. I'm just going to invite Bob to give a quick token of appreciation.